The numbers are in for the September housing market data for the Reno Sparks housing market, and let's just say the weather is not the only thing cooling down. I'm going to dive into exactly what that means, and of course, if you stay till the end, I'm going to tell you exactly what that means for both buyers and sellers, so you're not going to want to miss out on all of that valuable advice. So make sure that you watch until the end. After a crazy summer, I'm actually so excited to see these numbers as they are. It's kind of worked me, you guys, I'm not gonna lie. So let's just dive into all the data and what it is showing us. First up is median sales price coming in at $612,000. This just barely dropped month over month from the closeout of August. This was less than 1% of a change, so really nothing too drastic there, but let's keep going because these numbers do have some surprises. All right, next up is number of closed sales. This was a whopping 14% decrease, you guys, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm feeling it, and I think this is normal. Of course, yes, interest rates are high. However, we do see a seasonal cooling around this time of year every year, so this isn't that shocking. Median days to contract also significantly increased to 24 days. This is an increase of 56.7% from the month previous. That's actually a huge number. And overall, though, if you think about it, 24 days from listing your home to it getting an offer accepted actually isn't even that long. It's just a lot longer than what we were seeing in the peak of the summer months. So while that number is a drastic change, I'm still not going to call it anything dramatic. However, it is, like I said, something we would expect this time of year almost every year. Percent of list price received is still strong for sellers, coming in at 98.7%. That basically is saying that if you price your home appropriately, you're still getting almost what you are asking for it in most cases. I am also seeing that on the ground here. I think, in that mid-range price range between like the $350 to $600,000 price range, we're seeing, $5,000 to $10,000 of buffer between list price and accepted offer. So nothing too dramatic there. And again, this is something that happens this time of year very often. Median sold price per square foot did come down just ever so slightly, less than 1% to $323 per square foot. Nothing really to write home about for that. It's kind of hovering in the same vicinity that we've been seeing it all summer. So nothing too crazy there. This is where it gets kind of crazy, and this is where I really have to feel for buyers because number of new listings decreased by more than 30%. So now buyers are not only up against high price tags that have gone up for the past several months. I guess they have come down just ever so slightly, less than 1% this past month, but they're up against increasing price tags. They're up against high interest rates, so the cost of actually borrowing money to finance a home is up. And then on top of that, now there's a huge scarcity issue. So if you are trying to buy in this market, I really feel for you. It's not easy out there, and we're going to talk about that more, so make sure you stay with me. Active inventory also came down significantly at nearly 8%, 7.9% if you want to be precise. So that kind of goes along with the metric before. If you're a buyer in this market, it is somewhat challenging to find inventory depending on the price range that you are looking in. Okay, this is a really interesting one. Last but not least, months supply of inventory is actually up by 7.1%, coming in at 2.3%. Some industry leaders are of the belief that a balanced market is actually 6 months of inventory. I don't know how true that really is anymore after what has happened with impacts of COVID on our market. And there are a lot of factors at play that really dictate whether or not a market is balanced, right? Of course, you have interest rates, you have inventory, and of course, we can't forget price tags. So 2.3 months supply of inventory actually is still indicative of a slight scarcity, but not as crazy as we have seen in months and years prior. However, that number increasing paired with less new and active inventory coming online, it's kind of telling you that homes are sitting online longer, and that ties back into our median days to contract figure, which we said was now up to 24 days. So less new things are coming on the market, but the listings that are on the market are sitting there for longer. So let's talk about what this means for both buyers and sellers. As I've kind of mentioned already, if you're a buyer in this market, it's tough out there. It's not impossible, and there are some perks, so we're going to dive into that. But like I've said, you have limited inventory, you have high price tags, and you have high interest rates all kind of working against you. That being said, sellers are going to have to sort of be sympathetic to the buyers in this market, and they're going to have to offer some concessions and some better deals. So you may have more of an upper hand in negotiations, especially as we're seeing these numbers cool down. And we always want to keep in mind that when there are less people competing for the same listings, that is going to drive prices down, and that is going to cause the sellers within these transactions to have to play ball with you in ways that are more favorable for your side of the transaction. So if you are thinking about buying, make sure that as the rates are fluctuating, that you are checking in with your realtor lender partnership, that they are really keeping on top of your pre-approval, because that amount can change day to day as the interest rates are changing and fluctuating so drastically day to day. Make sure you're keeping an eye on that. Also, have kind of in your mind a list of must-haves, but also differentiate that from things that would be nice to have or things that you don't really need, because there is still a scarcity. There are limited listings that may or may not be within your price range. So you're going to want to try to get in if you can. I mean, if your goal is to buy a house, I'm not pressuring you, but if your goal is to buy, I think in this climate, it makes sense to kind of get in wherever you can and start accruing equity. If now is not the right time, that's totally fine. You're never going to hear me pressuring you or rent shaming you. If now is not the right time, there are some things you can be doing to well position yourself for when the time is right. So you can increase your income. You can start talking with a credit repair person if you need to repair your credit, start boosting those credit scores. You can pay down debts, but you're going to want to make sure you connect with a lender in advance so that you have a game plan. Sometimes, while it may be counterintuitive, paying off debt is actually not in your best interest when you're saving to buy a home. Sometimes having a monthly payment is fine as long as you have more cash in the bank. So you're going to want to make sure you connect with somebody well in advance of making a purchase so that you can put together a strategy and a game plan that's going to position you the best way possible for when the time is right. If buying is, within your 2-year horizon for your life plan, I would advise you not to be switching jobs, or at least not be switching how you get paid. For example, if you're a gig worker, independent contractor, don't go get a W-2 job and vice versa. You can always pick up a side hustle, but you're not going to want to change how you are getting paid. Getting a promotion or whatnot, or a raise, that's always a good thing. All right, sellers, it's time to talk about your side of the transaction now. So these numbers are telling us that the market is starting to cool off. As I have mentioned, if you were following along during the buyer portion, buyers are having a lot of factors kind of working against them, but that's not necessarily translating to strength on the seller side, which is super interesting. It's kind of a tough market for all players involved, and if you want to attract a buyer or close a deal with a buyer even, you're going to want to make sure that you are offering concessions, that you are sort of sympathetic to what buyers are up against in this market, because this climate is just weeding out buyers, which is causing less competition, which, as we know, causes price tags to come down. And with the high interest rates and the limited inventory already, it's going to be harder to find a buyer now than it was just a month or two ago. Of course, when listing your home, there's literally nothing more important. Well, there are two things that are super important. The first is appropriately pricing your listing. So you're going to want to make sure that your agent is very skilled at analyzing data and getting the right price tag on your listing. And the other thing, of course, is marketing. You're going to want to work with an agent who has a vast network of buyers in the price range that you are listing your home at. Because, as I said, buyers out there are getting really discouraged. So there are a lot less of them, and you're going to want to find the right agent who's going to be able to help you attract a buyer for your home. All right, if you guys have any questions about the market or anything related to real estate, you can book a free call with me. There's a link to do that in the description box below. It's no obligation, no pressure, just an opportunity for us to connect and see if we might be a good fit to work together. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. I put out new videos every single week about the Reno Sparks housing market, the Northern Nevada lifestyle, and of course, all things related to buying and selling real estate. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.